Hello, reader. Thank you for joining us. This is the Christian Readers Community Podcast. On this podcast, we will be discussing with fellow readers and authors. You will never lack for good conversations and recommendations of Christian books. If you're a lover of literary works, fiction and non-fiction, then you have made the right stop here. Thank you for joining us again, and I hope you listen to every podcast that we get to put out for you. Thank you.
Our guest on the show today is Ian D. Feldman. He writes page-turning apocalyptic fiction that explores Christian themes in the real world, with unique characters who challenge common thinking and shed light on issues we all face. Because no life is free from catastrophe. The apocalypse is a useful tool to explore the impact of disasters on our lives while being entertained along the way. Ian, an avid student of history and tourist at heart, lives in California with gratitude for the many blessings of God in our world.
Hi, welcome to the Christian Readers Community. My name is Faith, and today I'm here with another author, an amazing author. And as you've heard from his biography, he is a guy, and he is a thriller writer. Welcome to the show, Ian.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh, how is California this morning?
It's a lovely day. It's in the low 60s and 60s Fahrenheit, I should say. And no thrillers on the horizon here.
So we're not expecting any storm anytime soon. No hurricanes, right? No
hurricanes today, thankfully.
Thank God. Okay. So you are a thriller writer, like I indicated when we were reading your biography, and like I just mentioned now. And I love reading thriller books. So without wasting much time, ladies and gentlemen, everyone listening to us right now, let me introduce Ian D. Feldman, author of The Vortex. So tell us about the book, The Vortex.
So The Vortex is about Lenny Smalls. He's an Army Ranger. So for those who don't know, the Rangers are an elite force within the U.S. Army, and Lenny is from the most elite of the elite forces within that elite group. So there's a lot of elite there. So he's a very gifted.
Yeah.
And so the story is how he who's fallen on hard times deals with the storm. And so in California, there's a phenomenon called the Pineapple Express. Basically, a lot of moisture comes from the Pacific and gets dumped during the winter. And occasionally that can turn into very severe storms. So as an example, in 1876, there was a storm which flooded half of the Central Valley of California. That resulted in a lot of people being killed, that sort of thing. So this kind of storm is not unprecedented in California's history, and that's the basic premise, is how they deal with it.
Oh wow! Okay, yeah, go on. Oh, okay, go on.
So Lenny finds himself, he's very creative, very resourceful. He has literally carved a home for himself at the top of the hill. He's made a cave, basically. And that actually stems from real life. There are certain homeless people here in California who've actually done that. So I've really tried to make the book as realistic as possible, drawing from real life things. And so it's really an opportunity to showcase someone who is both godly and resourceful, and how that person makes choices when faced with very severe circumstances.
So you said something. You said that Lenny, that he suddenly started living in a cave, right?
Yes.
Is it this kind of people you call hobos over there?
Yes. So there's a lot of words for them: homeless, unhoused, hobos, bums. There's all sorts of ways to refer to them. But yes.
Okay, so I read this book and really it was a very, very powerful book. I mean, a book writing and featuring the apocalypse. It was like you were giving us disasters and while entertaining us at the at the process of doing that. So you featured, like you said earlier, Lenny was an ex-ranger, right?
Yes.
And you also featured a hurricane. So tell me, how much of an experience, or let's just say, okay, let me ask this question this way: have you ever experienced a hurricane?
Yes, I have lived through several. I've had the very good fortune to have lived in several different areas of the United States, and hurricanes are a very common occurrence on the Atlantic seacoast. They also, while they're less common, there's something called a bomb cyclone, which affects the West Coast. And basically, hurricanes are just tropical storms of greater severity. And so, if you've ever seen them on the news, they have that central eye, and the clouds extend from that central eye, and there's that rotation, and they're devastating. The force of the wind, when you see those reporters kind of standing there, it's hard to really gauge how forceful the wind is. Having winds in excess of 100 miles an hour is unbelievable. If you've never experienced...
I've actually always wondered about this. How did you get this knowledge? Let's say, how did you get the knowledge about the broadcasting world that you featured in the book?
Well, so living in Southern California, there's a lot of opportunities to kind of see reporters and the film industry in particular up close and personal. So I've actually done some background acting where I've been on film sets and actually watched how they film, how they create the sound that they want. There's a science behind all of it, and it's really fascinating in terms of how cameras are set and the viewpoints that they choose. It's all very purposeful. And so when it comes to reporting, the typical gear that an on-site reporter will have is a camera that they hold, and the camera has there's a word for it that I can't recall, but basically it's a system which holds the camera steady while the cameraman
You're not talking about a tripod?
Not a tripod. No, they actually have it attached to their body, but there's a mechanism that holds it steady, because generally they're going to follow the reporter, and if it was on a tripod,
they won't be able to do that. Yes,
the tripod would probably just get knocked over. So having it attached to their body is really the most helpful, and so the technology behind it is remarkable, and it's very simple. When you see it, you're like, oh, that makes sense. But but because the only view that we ever really get is of the reporter, you never see what goes on behind the lens.
Yeah. Yes. You won't even know that there's someone behind the camera controlling it. Anyway, that's fine. Let's talk about the military aspect of this book. Because according to what you said, Lenny was an ex-ranger, and yes, I saw that because I read your book cover to cover. I said, well, did you have to research, or have you worked with the military before?
So I know a lot of military people. My father was in the Army, and actually my father was a master sergeant. So part of it is my father's experiences from the military. He wasn't a ranger, but the basic training elements are very similar. And it's the advanced schools that rangers go through that would be different. But the fundamental elements of the military is something that my father kind of told me a lot about, and I've also done a lot of research on it. So the way it works, the rules, and all that kind of stuff is, I've tried to keep it very realistic in terms of how Lenny thinks about things from that military person's perspective.
So, but writing this book, I know you did lots of researching, lots of writing and editing, and for the final publishing. So, which of the stages would you say was the most difficult for you?
All of them.
Wow.
This is one of those things that you don't really know what you're getting into when you start. And
yeah,
a lot of people want to write a book, right? But writing something coherent, and so the Vortex is 300 something pages, and to have 300 something pages of a coherent story that makes sense, where all of the plot points fit together, to edit it, to make it interesting, if you want it to be good, then this book took me over 3 years to write, and there's a lot of stuff that didn't make the final cut, and it's because each run through you're trying to make it better, trying to make it more interesting, especially for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, is this going to be a one-time thing, or do you plan to write again?
Well, in the interest of complete candor, it was originally going to be just one book, but I have learned since I started that it makes sense to have multiple books. And so the Vortex is the first in a series. The second book in the series is already published. I released it on February 6th. It's called Fracture. And I'm working on the third book in that series now, and I'm also publishing novellas for the backstory of each main character. So there's a prequel called Pariah,
Ooh.
which is Lenny's backstory, and there's one called Politician, and there'll be several others.
Oh, okay, that's wonderful. And okay, so you're a thriller author. So what kind of thriller do you write? Because I know you've written a book about the apocalypse. So will you continue this way? Because I've seen people who write thriller and they focus on political thrillers, some write suspense, and some write crime thriller. So where are you focused on that genre of thriller? Yeah?
So it's a great question. My genre is apocalyptic fiction. So for those who've read Revelation, disasters feature prominently throughout Revelation. God's judgments fall on in some cases, literally fall on the earth. So there's a lot of opportunity for thriller stories as people, when you think about it. How is the average person going to deal with the apocalypse? When literally it's one bad thing after another. And so you don't have to be an Army Ranger to be in a position where you're dealing with something that's traumatic, something troubling, or a difficult situation. Really, so there's plenty of opportunity through this series to show how people can deal with these difficult situations. And so I'm going to stick with the apocalyptic trend, I guess, maybe for lack of a better word, storyline. for a while, maybe 5-6 books at least.
I really enjoyed reading your book. It kept me late, I had to go to bed late the night I was reading your book. If I had known, I guess I would have read it during the day. But I was actually telling myself that, okay, just read a few pages and let's see what this book is about. Then you can go to bed and continue the next day. But I was finding it difficult to drop the book. And when I was done reading, I was like, oh, what a climatic end. So for anyone listening to us right now, wherever you're listening from, if you're a fan or a lover of apocalyptic fiction, you might want to give Ian a try. And if you'd like to do that, you can subscribe to his newsletter. He is giving away a free novella to everyone who would subscribe to his newsletter. So do reach out to him via that channel. Subscribe. Check out our the description section of this episode. You would see the link to subscribe into his newsletter. And once you're in, you have a free access to the free book. And Ian, before we go, which other channel would people be able to reach out to you?
Well, so people can get hold of me at my author website, which is author Ian Feldman at it's Ian F at authorianfeldman.com. That's what it is. So that's the simplest way. But you can also follow me on Facebook, and I do have an Instagram page, but Facebook is kind of the most active of my social media.
Okay, Ian. After this, an excerpt from your book is coming up, and that excerpt is actually read in the voice of Ian, so you might want to listen to that excellent read. Actually, when I was listening to him read that one, I was like, okay, am I actually listening to an audiobook or so everyone, you might want to stick around for that one rather. And once you're done listening to the excerpt, then you might want to check out the rest of the book. But really, Ian, your book is wonderful. Your book is amazing, action packed, and I do hope you keep writing.
Well, thank you very much. I'm certainly looking forward to it, and I'm certainly glad that you enjoyed it, and I enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you. Me too. This has been a wonderful conversation, really. And I hope that when I invite you next time, you'd be willing to come. By the way, when is your next book going to be released?
So book 3 will be out in the late spring. I'm about halfway through it now. So.
Ooh. So we're talking about June, July.
Probably June.
Yeah, June. Okay. All right. I should be able to have you here by that time.
Awesome.
Right?
Looking forward. Yes.
Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening. And until I come your way, I'm stay safe and stay blessed. Up next is an excerpt from Ian's The Vortex. Thank you.
Chapter 1, 23 years before present day. The glorious morning filled his room with the promise that special days bring. He yawned and cracked open an eye. The sun's rays eradicated the darkness and shone on his finds from the day before, a glittering mica-studded rock, and a strange plant with an even stranger insect in a sealed plastic cup. His mother's remonstration about not waking his father flitted through his thoughts. He stayed in bed and shut his eyes tight. He tossed and turned as his thoughts filled with the possibilities of his birthday party and the additions to his collection. He scrunched his eyes tighter and pulled the covers over his head. His thoughts raced faster while the closeness of the air stifled. He clambered out of bed and dressed in his favorite flannel shirt and jeans. He grabbed a worn leather notebook that lay next to his finds. He traced the dirt and water stains that marred the cover to the name that could still be read despite the wear of constant handling. Pastor Smalls. A faded silver line ran through Pastor. Handwritten with the same ink in block letters above the word Pastor was his name, Lenny. He had chosen the colors so it stood out on the cover. He admired the journal for a moment. The leather was cracked and rough in his soft hands. He pulled it close. His chest swelled as much with pride as with the intake of a deep breath. He relished the smell of nature that filled his nostrils. What will I find today, Pop? He looked out the window to make sure of the weather. Looks like a beautiful day. He crept along the hallway to his parents' bedroom door. He considered waking them, but thought better of it. Pop needs his rest, he thought, as his mother's warning came to mind again. His hand rubbed his bottom at the possible result of opening the door. He made the short trip to the kitchen and laced on his boots. He left the door ajar and held the screen door as it closed to keep the noise down. "Happy birthday to me," he murmured, and raced off into the woods behind the house. The quiet of cut grass underfoot turned to the crunch of dried leaves and loose dirt. He ignored the area nearest the house, its mysteries uncovered long ago, as he scanned the trees. His pace slowed as the distance from the house increased. He frowned and stopped. I could have sworn it was right here. Arms akimbo, he turned until he completed a full circle. All these trees look the same today. He scratched his head and looked up, down, and around. Probably some stupid squirrel got it. He sighed and opened the notebook. Notes and sketches of leaves and plants, bugs and animals filled the pages. Here and there a specimen was pressed into the page when a drawing wouldn't do. The splatter of insect innards looked more like a test from an ink blot than a useful record of what had been put there. He found the page, he saw it, and read. The Mariposa lily is a species of flowering lily bulb native to the western U.S. The wildflower is found in dry meadows and woodlands at higher elevations. The flowers can be white or purple. Prefers a sunny location in moist to dry loams and rocky soil. He looked around again. There's too many trees here. Must be farther along. He resumed his walk up the hill and scanned the trees. "There it is," he exclaimed as he snapped the journal closed and ran forward. A small, dirty rag hung in a sapling about 5 feet above the ground. As he neared the rag, he searched the ground for his quarry. He approached the small purple flower and knelt next to it. He opened the journal and compared the information there to the flower. Flowers can be white or purple. Purple, check. Flower shape, cup, check. Number of petals, 3, check. Leaves, grass-like, check. Satisfied with his assessment, he made a large check mark in the journal. All parts of the flower are edible. Flowers, leaves, and bulb. The bulb tastes like a potato. He considered the flower for a moment and fingered the leaves and soft, fragrant flower. Sure is pretty. Doesn't seem right to chew it all up, especially when there's going to be party food later. He smiled at the thought of all the treats his mother would have for him. His stomach rumbled. "You can wait," he said as he patted his belly. He gathered some small stones, made a pile next to the lily. He then took a nearby stick and screwed it into the ground next to the pile of stones. He stood back and evaluated the effect of stone, stick, and rag. Should be able to find it more easily next time. Can't wait to show Tony. Confident that the site was marked well enough so he could return, he picked up his journal and searched for a new discovery. With a slow, methodical pace, he crawled, slithered, prodded, and poked each inch of ground in the area. Each chirp or scratch garnered his attention. When he found something interesting, he consulted his journal to determine what it might be. He scribbled, drew, edited. Before long, his stomach growled. "Better go see what's for breakfast. Mama might need help getting ready, too." As he made his way down the hill toward the house, he saw his father drive away. "Pop!" he called. "Pop!" He watched his father's car disappear around a curve. His hands found his pockets while his chin came to rest on his chest. A loud sigh escaped. He kicked at a stone and watched it roll a few feet down the hill. A high-pitched whine at his ear caused him to jump and brush away whatever had gotten too close. "Just a stupid mosquito," he laughed to himself. He shook himself and resumed his trek to home and hearth. As he approached the house, a new smell caught his attention, different from the earthy harmony that had surrounded him through the morning. This new smell, warm and sweet, called to him, the siren's song. His steps turned to find the source of this enchantment. "Something smells good," he announced as he entered the kitchen. His mom stood at the stove, her back to him. "Just some sweets for your party today. Wouldn't be right to let your big day come and go without some treats for you and your friends." "Can I have some now?" he asked. "May I have some now?" his mother reminded. "May I have some now?" "Not until the party. There's a breakfast sandwich here with your name on it, though." Lenny's countenance sagged, crestfallen. "Come on over here. Let Mama give you a big hug on your big day. Better than any old treat any time." She sat on a stool so Lenny could sit on her lap. He put his head on her shoulder and chewed on the sandwich while she hugged him to her. The stool wobbled as she rocked him in her arms. The scent of baking, sugar, and vanilla mingled with her warmth as he snuggled close. When you were a baby, you used to perch on my shoulder just like you are now. I would sit in the stool and hold you for hours, light as a feather. I'd sing to you. Do you remember? Yes, Mama. Hushabye a baby on the treetop. She sang. I remember, Mama, but I'm not a little baby anymore. You're a big boy now. I can barely hold you in my lap to give you a hug. How big you get, you'll always be my baby boy. Maybe you should have Pop fix the stool so it doesn't wobble and not be able to rock you. I like it the way it is. I love you, Mama. I love you, baby boy. The doorbell rang. That must be your friend Tony. He's always early. Must like you a lot coming over early. He's my best friend. I thought I was your best friend. Oh, Mama, you know. She shushed him, smiled, and hugged him again. I know I'm just your mama who loves you. You better go get the door. Don't keep your best friend waiting. You boys go play in the back while I finish everything up for your party today. Might even let you and Tony have a cookie if you're ready for the party on time. Lenny smiled at the thought of an early snack and furrowed his brow. Will Pop be home for the party? Your father will be here. He knows this is your big day and wouldn't miss it. Church services need to be led, but his son only turns 10 once. You'll see. The doorbell rang again. Letty stood. His mother looked at the timer on the oven and picked up the streamers that were on the counter. You better go tend to Tony before he gets tired of waiting on you and breaks down the door. I'll put these streamers up and finish getting ready. Be back here in an hour. If I need you before then, I'll call. Okay, Mama. Lenny went to the door and took his friend around the house. Tony, wait till I show you what I found this morning. Let's go. The boys raced up the hill to find Lenny's discovery. Awesome flower, Lenny. We'll have to protect it from the invaders. Invaders? Yep, invaders. The invaders want to take everything awesome for themselves. My dad says we have to protect our country and all the awesome things we have from the invaders. We have to stop them. Set up the perimeter. Lenny caught on and replied, Sir, yes, sir. Our pledge, Sergeant. The boys recited the mantra Tony's father had taught them. I volunteered to fight the invaders, fully knowing the hazards. We'll do right and stay strong. We'll do more than my share of work, however long it takes. I will never fail. The boys stood back to back around the flower. Tony announced the arrival of the alien invaders. They both made shooting noises. Each called out or pointed in turn with gleeful shouts of imaginary combat. When one's opposition got to be too much, the other would come to his rescue and throw an imaginary grenade or fire a missile to thwart the enemy's ceaseless numbers. Just when it seemed that all would be lost, Tony saved the day with the super death ray. With one blast of this miracle weapon, all the invaders were instantly vaporized. Lenny and Tony bumped forearms and high-fived each other in celebration. We did it, and the death ray. Wow, Lenny said. Tony grinned. I saw it in the movie last night. It was awesome. Worked really good here, too. With the battle over, Tony dug the lily from the ground. It was quite a fight. Let's take this to your mom. It's real pretty. She'll like it. Be a nice way to remember our victory, too. I think we're late. We better go, Lenny advised. Lenny and Tony hustled to the house and into the kitchen. Mama, look what we found. Tony, show Mama what you got. Tony held the beautiful purple lily out in front of him and searched for Lenny's mother, a self-satisfied grin on his face. I don't see your mom, Tony said as he turned to look at Lenny. She's always in the kitchen, especially on party days. Mama, where are you? There was no reply. Only the dull thrum of the oven heating could be heard. A burn smell hung in the air. It's burning, said Tony. Pop, Lenny called. Nothing. I better check the oven. Mama might be getting ready and forgot something. Lenny turned the corner of the kitchen island and saw a red streamer hanging to the left of the doorway to the hall. As he moved toward the oven, the legs of a stool on its side came into view. Lenny forgot the oven and slowed down as he peered into the hallway from the kitchen. His mother lay on the floor. She faced away from him with her head at an odd angle against the wall, her legs and arms splayed apart. Mama, we got something nice for you, Lenny shouted. You all right, Mama? There's no answer. Lenny knelt next to his mother. Tears welled in his eyes. Get up, Mama. Mama, you said you'd call me if you needed me. Wake up, Mama. Come see your new flower. Mama.